Welcome to the Joy of Cooking podcast. Each week we set the table for a discussion about recipes and stories from the authors of The Joy of Cooking, Kitchen Victories and Misadventures, and what we're cooking and eating right now. We're glad you've joined us at the table today. I'm Shannon Larsson, home cook, Joy of Cooking user and fan, and kitten enthusiast.
I'm Megan Scott, co-author of the 2019 edition of The Joy of Cooking. I'm a food editor by day and avoider of dish duty by night, and I have 3 bags of cornmeal in my freezer right now.
Really light on the cornmeal. I'm John Becker, 4th generation co-author and steward of The Joy of Cooking, America's oldest family-run cookbook, and I bought an entire bunch of celery this week and felt fiscally irresponsible on the drive home.
Yeah, expensive celery.
I feel like it might have just been, I was making the recipe for last week, the black-eyed peas and greens, because, we chose that one because it's, supposed to be an economical recipe. Yeah, I don't know. Just in that context, I didn't even go outside of the produce section, and it felt like I had spent a ton of money for what I got.
Yeah.
But then I looked at we sign up for the rewards card or whatever at the grocery store, and so I just out of curiosity, I looked at last November, and it was the same price. So I think this is one of the first old man yells at cloud moments that I've had. I mean, probably not. I'm sure I've had plenty at this point, but
you did buy a whole bunch of celery and not just what we needed for the recipe.
It's true. I usually limit myself to even when the produce people obviously do not want you to separate the bunches, I will be a bad person and just take off
if
4
it's
ribs.
selling by the pound, it's meant to be done. Yeah, you should just do it. You should just pick how much you want.
Yeah, but it's Thanksgiving week. We're not doing stuffing, but we are making gumbo, and then I don't know.
Yeah, we'll use it all.
Yeah,
but yeah. We weren't just using. It wasn't. I feel like you're calculating the expense as if it's just for that one recipe. But the greens were kind of expensive too, right?
Let's not talk about it.
We'll talk about that recipe in just a second. What's everybody been making this week?
Let's see. We made homemade ramen last night.
Yum.
We had to go out to Beaverton, which if you're in Portland, I don't know why it feels like such a trek. Nothing is
it
that
feels far.
It feels far, right? But whenever we go out there, we're like, well, we have to go to Uwajimaya. So we just picked up supplies, and then we made the chashu from the Joy, and it turned out great.
Oh, good.
Awesome.
Yay.
And I didn't realize it was so easy.
Yeah.
It's such for some reason in my brain, I'm like, oh, that's going to be a very complicated recipe, but it is the easiest thing. It just takes time.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, it's so simple.
Yeah, and you kind of have to have some patience, letting it cool down all the way before you try to slice it.
Yeah.
That can be, I don't know. If you jump the gun, it can be a little tricky.
But I feel like it's an impressive thing to make and for not much labor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the hardest part of that recipe is just getting the pork that you need to make it. Because it's not sold everywhere. But if you have a good Asian supermarket, they're probably going to have it.
Yeah, and we're going to try you said that you have a chicken chashu as well. So
the
shoyu chicken?
We're going to try that at some point too.
That's a really good, easy weeknight kind of recipe.
Perfect.
Yeah. We make that all the time for rice bowls and stuff.
We're overdue.
Yeah, we should make that this week, actually. I have had a couple of pretty lazy weekends, and I've just been cooking all day, which is kind of my favorite. I forgot how much I liked doing that.
Yeah.
And I don't usually have a whole day to just, mess around in the kitchen. But this past weekend, I made my annual batch of fruit cakes because they need a month to sort of sit around, and they don't taste as good right after you make them. They just need time for all the spices to kind of dissipate and not be as strong. And then I also soak mine in booze, so that usually helps over time. And over time, it kind of mellows, so it's not such a raw alcohol flavor.
You're not taking a shot when you're eating your fruit cake.
Well, no, but they're really good already, though. I tasted a little edge of one, and I'm very pleased with how they've turned out this year. I'm using the Joy of Cooking dark fruit cake. There's a light one and then a dark one. I used the dark one this year, and it has molasses and a bunch of, I only use dried fruit. I don't use the candied fruit. And what else? I used Jamaican pot still rum for kind of a little bit of funky flavor.
Yeah.
But I'll be giving
a little
those.
bit.
Yeah, just a little. I'll be giving those out. So you'll probably end up with at least half of one.
Oh, well, I hope so.
Didn't you plump up the dried fruit with some black tea this time?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that
Yeah.
sounds good.
Some of the
Sounded
fruit
interesting.
seemed a little bit dry, and so I just brewed up a strong batch of black tea and then soaked the fruit in there for 15 minutes, drained it off, and it made a big difference. And then the leftover tea liquid was super delicious.
Oh, yeah,
I
that
don't know
sounds
what to
amazing.
do with it, but it just tastes really good. It's like slightly sweetened, fruity black tea.
Put it on vanilla ice cream.
Ooh, yum.
Sounds everything can go on
Oh,
vanilla
you could
ice cream.
do like almost an affogato with
Yeah.
ice cream and heat up some of that tea. And
Yeah.
then, oh yeah, that
That'd
sounds
be
really good.
Really good.
Awesome. Well, we got to talk about the black-eyed peas and greens. We kind of we're coming back.
Yeah,
Full circle
circling-
to the
circling
black-eyed peas
around.
and greens, which was the Joy Scouts recipe of the week. John, since you made the recipe, why don't you talk a little about it? Other than your celery debacle, what happened?
I mean, yeah, like you were talking about, the bunches of greens at our most convenient supermarket are very small and just a little too expensive. So I ended up going for like mustards, which was like a bigger bunch for the same amount of money, and then some collards. And then I ended up adding them at different times because the mustards it's kind of a flimsier leaf, so it doesn't take as long. But yeah, we had a ham hock in the freezer, and so I used that. It was like the most miserly like ham hock ever. I think I got like maybe a quarter cup of shredded meat off of it.
Yeah,
So
it's hard to get a good ham hock here. It
like,
just
like
it
you were
just
talking
is.
about that
Yeah.
earlier or last week, and yeah,
I don't know why you didn't believe me. You were skeptical of me.
never again.
Trust her. Trust her.
But yeah, it turned out really well. Like it was delicious. We didn't use black-eyed peas because, well, I'm saving those for New Year's, as is tradition.
We had to clear out some beans. First in, first out on the beans. So what were they
I think
called?
they were the Caballero, the Rancho Gordo Caballero beans, like the black and white ones that kind of look like a cow.
Yeah, fancy beans.
They're so pretty.
Yeah, they're really pretty. And those were great. They really thickened and created almost like a bean like gravy. So it was very like stick to your ribs feeling meal, and it made a lot of food.
But it was totally overshadowed by the cornbread you made.
Yeah. It was a really good batch.
You're so good at cornbread.
Thanks.
You really are.
This one was especially.
Really.
It was one for the books.
Well, John's always wanted me to put green chilies and cheese, like cheddar, in the cornbread, which is great. But every time I add cheese, I feel like I can never taste it. Like it just doesn't come through. And so this time I was like, damn it, this cornbread is going to taste cheesy. I'm going to add. So I added a lot of cheddar in bigger chunks, like cubes rather than shredding. And that did, the cheese, you could taste the cheese. It was there.
Yes.
We left the cornbread on the counter while we were eating dinner and came back, and one of our cats had eaten a corner of it. So even cats like it. It's really good.
Yeah, the bread focused
bread
one.
cat.
Yeah.
So if you end up making our black-eyed peas and greens recipe, let us know what you think. You can tag us on Instagram at The Joy of Cooking. We would love to see what you make. Oh, and before we move on to the next segment, I did want to just mention that I'm creating our 2025 favorite cookbooks list for the year, and all of those books are going to be in our bookshop.org affiliate shop, which is at bookshop.org/shop/joy of cooking. We get like a small commission on any books you buy there, and all of that goes to support the pod. Hey, Joy of Cooking listeners, did you know the same family that taught America how to cook also taught California how to make world-class Chardonnay? The same joy and passion for life that inspired Irma Rombauer to write The Joy of Cooking inspired her great-nephew, Kerner Rombauer, to establish Rombauer Vineyards. Founded in 1980 in the Napa Valley, Rombauer has been producing acclaimed wines from California ever since. While they're famous for their iconic California Chardonnay, Rombauer crafts a diverse collection of delicious wines that bring joy to your table. Ready to taste the legacy? Visit rombauer.com/joy or use code JOYPOD, all caps, for 15% off your order. That's ROMBAUER.com/joy or code JOYPOD, all caps.
Must be 21 to enjoy.
This week, we would like to welcome Marisa McClellan to the table. Marisa McClellan is a food blogger, cookbook author, and canning teacher who has been writing about food on the internet for more than 20 years. She is the author of Food in Jars, Preserving by the Pint, Naturally Sweet Food in Jars, and The Food in Jars Kitchen. She has written for a variety of publications, including the New York Times, Better Homes and Gardens, and The Kitchen. She lives in Portland, Oregon, with her husband and 6-year-old twin boys. Marisa, welcome to the pod.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
What have you been cooking this week that you are excited about?
Well, so my cooking situation, so we moved back to Portland. I grew up in Portland and we moved back about 5 months ago. And I'm currently living in a little apartment literally behind my parents' house. And so I'm cooking for 6 most of the time now, which is a real departure for me. So I've been cooking a lot of like big things. It's like, let's make a casserole that'll last for more than a night so that I don't have to do this again. And so last night I made a pasta bake, beef and spinach and peppers and onions and tomato sauce and penne pasta, and then smothered the whole thing in some Parmesan and mozzarella. And I made enough for 3 nights because I was taking one to someone who had just had a baby. And so I made a truly vast quantity. And I was like, oh yeah, I do remember how to make really huge volumes of food. It was very satisfying. Other sort of casserole things I've made recently, I made sort of a ground turkey cottage pie that was really good, very autumnal feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've been making like a lot of chicken parm because that is something that my kids will eat, and it can go in different directions. And so like they'll eat it plain, and then we'll top it with some tomato sauce and mozzarella. We've been on a big sort of Italian kick lately in anticipation of all the Thanksgiving food. Like you got to eat something different before you spend a week eating Thanksgiving food. So that's kind of been the goal recently, is like get as much Italian and tomato-y stuff in before we shift into that week of turkey.
Yeah. Do you have any chicken parm hacks, or do you make it pretty old school?
I have evolved. It has really evolved for me. I used to be someone who sliced the chicken breast lengthwise, but recently I've started cutting them across the grain and then kind of mashing them as I bread them. And it makes a smaller piece of chicken, but it's so much more tender than if you cut them into large, flat pieces. And it's also great for kids because they can then pick them up and dip them. So, they're not very big, but they cook faster, they're more tender, and you don't have to like pound anything. You just kind of mash it a little bit as you're breading it, and you're golden. The other thing I've really started doing is, instead of setting up like a 3-stage breading station, I break the eggs, I beat it, I put all the chicken in, and then I dust the flour over and kind of make this disgusting mess. But then you're just ready to bread, and it goes really fast, and it's less dishes. And so those are kind of my shortcuts these days. But
I love that.
Really, the cutting across the grain makes for such a tender, fast cooking little cutlet that I'm never going back.
Yeah, good advice.
Yeah.
I like
I have
that.
to try that.
Yeah.
Especially like the breading station. You're always supposed to use like one hand for the wet and then one hand for the dry, and I always get it messed up.
Yeah, I'm not good at that either. I don't know. It's like I can't. My brain just can't save one. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, that was part of the reason I started doing this. I was like, I need this to be easier, less mess and less process. And the other thing I do too sometimes, especially now that I'm here with my parents, my mother is sort of a recovering almond mom. And so she still balks at the idea of frying something, even a shallow fry. And so I do cooking spray and brown them in the oven, like under the broiler, and they cook in like 2 or 3 minutes that way. And you still get a nice crispness. And I satisfy my mother's need to not have something fried in her house.
Yeah.
The oven fried.
Yeah.
Yeah. Still a thing.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely
Well, I
was
mean,
very
frying-
popular.
I like oven frying I like frying, but I like oven fried stuff because frying is messy.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's so messy.
It's the mess more than anything
Yeah.
for me. It's like, oh,
And then the smell.
The smell is what
Yeah,
gets me. I can't
lingering
do it.
smell.
yeah. Heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is your relationship to the joy of cooking?
Oh, I come from a Joy of Cooking family. Like, we go way back. When my parents first got married in 1970, my grandmother gave so her mother-in-law gave my mom her first copy of The Joy of Cooking. It was that sort of late 60s turquoise covered one under the dust jacket. And that was the foundational cooking volume in my house growing up. So anytime any big holiday was coming along, my dad would pull it out to like remind himself how long the turkey needed to be cooked. My mother, who is also dyslexic, messed up the pie crust recipe from The Joy of Cooking for years because she misread it for like 35 years until she was like, wait a second, I've been doing this wrong for all these years. But she always misread it in The Joy of Cooking. But she
Well,
finally
it must have worked okay.
It worked okay, but she was like, why is this so hard? And she was like transposing one number. But it was still like she looked at it, she made it wrong every time, but it still was fine. My sister in her first house painted her dining room. She color matched the cover of that book. And color matched her dining room to
I
that
love
edition. In the years since I've been sort of, in the 20 years that I've been an adult cooking, like I found the same edition copies for my sister and me. So everybody has one, like, because that is the one that we all grew up with, that my parents cooked from. So yeah. And I personally have, I think, 6 or 7 different editions, although I cut back a little when we moved recently. I think I might be down to 3, but still plenty. So yeah, I think is that
that's pretty
me?
good.
Okay.
That's pretty
The dining room is actually like
that seals
wow.
the deal. I feel like also you getting that edition for your sister, and so you can all have the same one. That's such a nice. Like sometimes we hear these stories about families who end up fighting over the copy, which is kind of it's cute in a way, but it's also sad. It's like we don't want anyone fighting over.
No, nobody's fighting.
No
Everybody
bad
has
blood.
their own. Although my parents is literally in pieces. Like it is
Mm-hmm.
in several pieces. It has been taped together, and then the tape has failed, and now you have sort of like the front half and the back half, and then a middle chunk.
That's awesome.
Well, luckily, 1963 editions are not quite collector's items yet. There's a lot floating around for everyone that needs one.
Yeah. I don't know the extent of your fame. I feel like you're a famous person because
I know, I do too.
you were like one of the first blogs that I sort of religiously followed. And it was around in the kind of like early blogging times. But like, I always feel like everyone knows who you are and you're like the canning expert. But like, how did all that get started? Where did that canning passion come from?
Well, so I grew up canning a little bit. So I grew up here in Portland, growing up picking like the neighborhood empty lots blackberries. When I was ages like 10 to 14, we lived out in Southwest Portland, right off Canyon Road, and had like an acre backyard. And the people who had owned the house, like two families before us, one of them had been a botanist. And so there was a quince tree and multiple apple trees and a pear tree in that yard and like a corner with rhubarb. And my mom didn't grow up canning. My mom is East Coast Jewish. Her mother didn't really cook. They had a maid who cooked. Like it was a very different background. And then when she moved to San Francisco in 1970, met my dad, got married 6 weeks later, became like a raging hippie and sort of got a little bit enveloped in that back to the land movement. She learned to can. Like they never had, like that house with the acre was the most property we ever had. In San Francisco in the early 70s, there was a lot of, do it yourself and canning happening. So one of her friends taught her to can in that era. And so by the time I was a kid, canning was something we did occasionally. And so when there was like a lot of apples to make applesauce, or there was blueberries for making blueberry jam, I grew up picking blueberries out on Sauvie Island. So all of these things, we just did enough that I was familiar and had just enough knowledge to be confident, but didn't really know enough to actually have any justifiable confidence. It's like I just knew enough to be dangerous. And so then fast forward to the summer of like 2005, I was living in Philadelphia. I was starting grad school, getting a master's degree in writing, and starting to realize that food writing was something I was interested in. And so throughout that next year, I was dabbling in doing more food writing. I had a blog. I found myself at one point in that kind of era writing for Slash Food, which was AOL's food blog way back in the day. And I was the editor of that site for about a year. And so I started canning. I had gone blueberry picking with a friend in South Jersey, came home with like 13 pounds of blueberries and went, what do you do with all of these blueberries? Well, you make jam. That's what I did as a kid. And so like I called my mom for a refresher course. I went to a hardware store and literally bought like 5 jars and made my first batch of jam. And I loved it. It like touched something in me where I was like, yes, this is something I want to do more of. I feel very satisfied when I do this. And so I started doing more. And when my gig with Slash Food ended, sort of at the end of 2008, I wanted to stay, and I was really invested in that food blogging canning or food blogging world that was kind of rising up right at that moment. So like 2007, 2008, I was very involved with it. And I felt like, well, okay, if I'm leaving Slash Food, I need to have something that will tether me in this food blog community. And I read someone's blog post one day about how they were freezing food in jars. And I just had this like visceral, like, God, I love food in jars. And like, that was truly where the name come from. I was like, I love putting food in jars. And I mean, it sounds so simple and silly right now, but like that was the impulse. And one of the things I've always felt in life is that if you can name something easily, then it's an idea worth pursuing. Like if a name just kind of comes to you, you're like, okay. Because other projects I've had ideas for, there hasn't been a name that kind of just wiggles up from the ether in the same way. But food in jars, it was like there. And so I bought the domain, I made a WordPress site, and I started blogging, and I knew nothing. Like it was that first year of writing that site was very much like a course in self-education in the science of food safety and food preservation, as well as writing about it. And so there was a lot of that going on in the background as I realized that people were paying attention to what I was doing, and I didn't want to be dangerous. And so I learned a lot really fast about what was safe, what wasn't. I looked into taking a master food preserver course, but at the time there wasn't one available in Delaware, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, or New York. Like since then,
Wow.
many more have popped back up. But at the time, canning was really on the wane. And then because of the like economic uncertainty that was happening in 2008, 2009, I happened to just start it right at the beginning of a tidal wave of interest in canning and preserving. It's the only time in my life that I've been ahead of the curve. And it may well be the only time in my life that I have that. But I was there, and I was the only person sort of writing about canning, and there were a few other people that I found later on, but because I had that boost of, people being aware of me because of Slash Food and AOL, I was the one that everyone found. Mm-hmm. And then it just sort of kept on going, and I got to write a book, and then I got to write another book, and, I got to write 4 books in total and travel and teach people to can, and it's been really a fun ride. So it's wild and crazy.
I thank you for all of your work, because I've used your website a lot. I've used your books a lot. Awesome. The recipes are great and really reliable.
Thank you.
Do you remember what your first blog post was about on your site?
I do, actually. It wasn't a canning post. It was about making sauerkraut.
Oh, cool.
And then how to use the sauerkraut that you've made. So yeah, I still remember.
Just out of curiosity, did you get any comments on that sauerkraut recipe?
I don't think so. I don't think I started getting comments from people until I started the site in like February, and I didn't really start getting any sort of traction or buy-in until I started posting about rhubarb jam, and then it took to the spring and summer for people. I also, in the very that first year of the site, I used to give away a jar of everything I made. Like I would be like, okay, I just made this thing. Here's the recipe, and I'm going to give away one jar. So leave a comment, and 10 or 12 people would comment.
Whoa.
And then I'd ship a jar off to them.
Oh, wow.
That's amazing.
It was the fact that I did that and that people trusted it. I mean, it was a different time.
Yeah.
It was a different time.
The reason why I ask is on our old Joy of Cooking website, RIP, we had a sauerkraut post that got so many unhinged safety related comments.
I think that post had the most comments of anything we ever did, and most of it was fine. It was just people asking questions, because fermentation is kind of a weird, if you have never done it, it feels weird to do. But people were asking about the safety, and then we'd get a lot of mine smells funny. Is it okay? And I'm like, well, I really can't. I'm not capable of answering that question for you, but that's part of the process.
Yeah. Yeah, God, I still respond to comment. I get a lot of comments, people saying, is this safe? Here's what happened. And often it's not even people following my recipes. They're just I did this thing. And I spend a lot of time still going through comments, a surprising amount.
I was actually going to ask, if there are any Hall of Famer comments that come to mind for you.
Okay, here's the one. Someone left a comment. They sent an email, and then somehow they found my phone number, because I used to be really involved in the Unitarian Church in Philadelphia, and I had like run a committee, and my phone number was on like the archives of a newsletter from like 10 years ago. And this person had drilled down through the Google search pages they called me. And because I didn't respond to their comment or their email fast enough.
Oh my God.
And so I answered the phone and they're like, "Hi, is this Marisa?" And they're like, "I left a comment on your site." I'm like, "Who is this?" I think that's the most extreme.
Yeah, that kind of takes
Yeah.
the cake.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, don't do that.
No.
Don't do
No.
that. That's, finding someone's phone number like that in of itself is
Yeah.
kind of a...
Luckily, I moved. That phone number is no longer valid. So even if someone tried to drill down, they would not find me.
Were you at all surprised at the popularity of your website and your books?
I was taken aback at just how quickly it took off. You know, I've done a lot of weird creative projects in my life. Nothing was ever as embraced as quickly and wholeheartedly as Food in Jars was and has been. You know, my husband and I, a million years ago, actually before we started dating, used to make an online cooking show together called Fork You.
Oh my God.
And we did that in the like early mid 2000s. It was kind of like our courtship, I guess.
Wow.
Like basically he was like, he wanted to date me, but he didn't know how, so we made a video cooking show together instead.
Yeah,
And
sure.
then did that for a couple of years and then finally started dating. And then once we were together, we're like, "Oh, we don't really need to do this to hang out with each other anymore." So that's kind of when it stopped. But yeah, like it kind of trundled along on its own for a while. For a hot second when I was in grad school, I started a website where I collected stories from people who had worked and shopped at Reading Terminal Market in Philadelphia, which is like this old, long-standing public market with food stalls. And it's been around since the railroad came through, because it was this sort of like the central point in Philadelphia for the railroad to come in from the countryside and sell food. And so I did that for a while. I got on the news about it, but no one ever really came to the website. So like I'd done all these little things, and Food in Jars was the only thing that kind of rose up from the, you know.
I mean, my money would have been on Fork You.
Yeah, you would have thought. But it just, you never know what people are going to like.
So I learned how to can from you years and years ago. Like literally Food in Jars is how I learned how to can and how I felt comfortable canning.
Yeah.
And I think it's because it's so accessible. Like it makes it feel like you're not going to kill people. And sometimes it's just like when you're reading other canning resources, I feel like, oh my gosh, I'm terrified to do this. And yes, it is like important to be like safe and careful, but also it's okay to do it. Like we've been doing it forever, like for, not forever, but for a long time. And whenever I have any people reach out to me and ask about canning, I always say Food in Jars, just start there. That's like the way to get into it. But do you have any suggestions for people, or any like how you push people along when they're maybe a little bit nervous to start canning and want to get into it?
One of the first things that I always tell people is that if you can boil a pot of water to make pasta, you can really can. Like this process is not really significantly different. And that kind of sets people's nerves at ease a little bit, because you think, oh my God, there's some like deep science or like, you know, deep magic to canning. And there's not. It's like if you can boil water, you can can. And then the other thing I tell people is that if you start with jam, you're really going to be very safe, because in canning, and you all know this, that it is all about acid content. Like that is the thing that makes a preserve safe or not safe. And so with most fruit that we're canning, it is naturally high enough in acid to be safe. And like I'm on a bunch of different Facebook canning groups just to kind of observe what's happening. And someone posted a recipe the other day, and it was for cranberries. And it was like a very straightforward cranberry jam. Like, is this safe for canning? And there was this whole debate. And finally, someone kind of cut through and said, cranberries are very high in acid. There is nothing that you can really do to these cranberries that are, unless you just do half cranberries, half onion, which is not probably what you're going to do, you're going to have a product that is going to be safe enough for canning. And that is kind of my line as well, is when you're working with these high acid foods, strawberries, blueberries, blackberries, yellow peaches, you know, apricots, cranberries, rhubarb. These are all things that are very high in acid, and that is what's going to prevent any botulism growth from happening. And that typically comforts people enough that they can move forward. But it's interesting. One of the things that I've always said when I am doing a canning talk or demonstration or teaching a class is that teaching people to can is a big part of what I do, but the biggest part is just helping them release a fear, because so many people come to the idea of canning fearful. And so once you can put aside that fear, you can actually learn and understand what's happening and be much more confident moving forward.
Do you find that fear is kind of the biggest stumbling block for people getting started, or is there something else that new canners, in your experience, come to you with having concerns about, or just?
I think the fear, they're afraid they're going to kill someone. They're afraid they're going to do something dangerous. And then, it's interesting because I do think these days we are in, like, it used to be that people could just learn how, like, read something and learn how to do it. And that reading perception and comprehension is much more of a struggle for people these days than it used to be. And there's so much information on the videos on YouTube that are of such wildly different quality that I do think that separating out the useful information from the not so useful information has gotten harder in our culture today. So I don't know if that actually answered your question, but that it's an interesting moment that we're in.
Yeah, I feel like it's got to be, especially with AI recipes and whatnot, and people trusting AI answers.
Not even AI. It's just like hard. The volume of stuff out there makes it hard to actually know what should I trust.
Yeah.
And like now, I find when I just Google something, I will get a bunch of websites I've never heard of, and I'm like, well, I don't know anything about this, or who is writing this, or if a human is even writing it, or
did anybody test this?
Yeah,
recipe?
did anyone
Did
look at
anybody edit
this?
But what's happening because of that is this very interesting kind of almost schism in the world of canners, where you see one group that's very fundamentalist in their approach to canning, where they're like, okay, there's so much more information, so I'm going to narrow it down. So I'm only going to follow recipes from sources that test every single recipe. And I don't mean just test like they made it. I mean, they took it to a lab and had it tested for safety. And I applaud their vigilance, but that might be taking it a little too far, because not every recipe has to be tested for scientific safety. We know the acid content of a variety of fruits. We know that you need, 1 tablespoon of bottled lemon juice for every pint of tomato product you need to ensure a safe environment. There are certain things we know, so you can take that knowledge and build recipes. But I get a lot of flack from people now because they're like, well, are your recipes, has each recipe been tested by a lab to prove that it's safe? And I'm like, no. Like, that's expensive. To have a single recipe tested by a lab costs around $500. And people always ask me, well, were your books lab tested? I'm like, no publisher in the world has that kind of budget.
Yeah.
Someone said to me once, like, this was a master food preserver in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. And she's like, you've made a really good career out of cutting down tested recipes and adding some herbs and spices. And I'm like, yes, I have. Yes, I have. That is basically what I do. I make smaller batches of tested and reliable things to make them more flavorful and make them appeal to a modern palate. Like, that is literally what I'm doing, because I understand how the pieces fit together and I understand the science. And that's basically what I'm doing. But most of us who are developing canning recipes in this day and age, that's what we're doing.
Yeah. We bought an acid meter for the last edition, but and it's a fairly affordable piece of equipment, but we weren't
It's not a lab.
Yeah, it's not the same as a lab.
I have used those as well, because when I was writing my Naturally Sweet book, those sort of, coconut sugar and agave and those things aren't as heavily tested. And so I just wanted to make sure that my assumptions about science and acid balance were being borne out in numbers. And they were. But I can't report that data and be like, look, I'm not a scientist. I don't have any scientific background. I was a person messing around with a pH meter and some, calibration fluids in my kitchen. It's a very different thing.
Yeah. And this is part of why, I feel like the USDA and Extension Services have done all of this research and testing for us. So we don't need to be afraid. If you just understand the kind of basics behind canning and acidity, you don't have to freak out that a recipe that hasn't been sent to a lab is going to make you sick.
Exactly.
If you're going completely off the map and you're not starting from a tested recipe.
I definitely recommend not going completely off.
Start with strawberry jam.
Amen.
That is a one case where, you should probably get that lab tested.
Yeah. What's the last thing you canned?
I canned I did a lot of grape stuff this fall. I got grapes from 2 different people, and so I did like a more straight ahead grape jelly. I did some grape jam where I just cooked the grapes down and then pushed them through a food mill, so you got some of the like the pulp and the little bit of the skin, but not a ton. And I did some basic versions. I did some with rosemary. Like I feel like I've really exhausted the full range of grape possibilities this year. I have some quince in my fridge that are waiting for me to find the time. They were on the ground in my neighborhood, and then I saw the tree, and they had there had been a windy day, and they just rolled into the gutter, and I'm like, no one else is going to pick those up.
Yeah.
So I picked them up, and they're hanging out in the fridge waiting for me. My mom has been doing a lot of cranberry jams and jellies to give to her friends and get ready for Thanksgiving. And so I have been sort of adjacent to, or wiping rims and helping with the cranberry process. So I've been very much in the fall canning. Oh, and I made a batch of apple butter recently. I am slowly in fits and starts working on redoing the slow cooker apple butter sort of technique on my website. And so I made it. I took lots of pictures. I canned it, and I haven't taken the finished pretty pictures of the jars. And so once I do that, I will write a new post and get
That's
all that.
exciting.
Yeah.
Do you prefer slow cooker to oven methods?
Yes, because the oven method, you end up having to clean your oven because it really gets very splattery. And a slow cooker is a great tool for fruit butters in general. And I recently discovered that they make 10-quart slow cookers. And that has really been the game changer for me. I have a friend at Hamilton Beach, even though I'm not doing much, I'm not being much of an influencer or a blogger these days, but I still have a friend who works at Hamilton Beach, and she was like, hey, do you need anything? And I was so I was looking at the website. I was like, you have 10-quart slow cookers. This is amazing. How did I not know that this existed? Because in the past, kind of topped out at 6 or 8 quarts, and that doesn't make a whole lot of fruit butter. But you can really get a lot in a 10-quart slow cooker. And so that has, because then it really yields a serviceable amount of fruit butter. So that's been my latest sort of evolution and process.
So you've been leaving the top off of the slow cooker the whole time? Or?
What I do is I put a wooden spoon or a chopstick across the rim and then put the lid on top, so you have a little bit of vent. But if you leave the lid off completely, it either dries out on top without actually cooking down, so it kind of burns on the bottom because it just the heat's coming up from the bottom, so it starts to scorch because the steam can't escape because the top has dried out completely. So by just venting the lid a little bit, it stays moist on top, cooks down more efficiently, and really allows the slow cooker to do its work.
Nice. I'll have to try that.
Yeah. And I run it overnight.
We're big fans of Rombauer Vineyards. They're sponsoring today's episode, actually. But honestly, their wines are fantastic with so many joy of cooking dishes. My current favorite is their Sauvignon Blanc with our cow soy gai recipe. That bright, crisp wine cuts right through the richness of the curry. It's perfect.
Oh, absolutely. Being Oregonians, we take our Pinot seriously. We're excited about their new Pinot Noir, which pairs beautifully with our chicken jambalaya. The wine has enough body to stand up to all those bold Creole flavors.
If you want to try these pairings yourself, head to rombauer.com/joy or use code JOYPOD, all caps, for 15% off. That's ROMBAUER.com/joy or code JOYPOD, all caps.
Must be 21 to enjoy.
You were talking about moving back to Portland
Yeah.
from Philadelphia, and I was just curious. I mean, obviously you've gotten back into the canning groove, but
Yeah.
has your canning practice changed at all since you got back?
So my canning practice has changed a lot since I had kids. That was really the lightning strike in my canning practice. And then we have been working on this move for 2 years, a little over.
Wow.
And so my husband and I and our kids spent a month in Portland in the summer of 2003 just to hang out with my parents. But it was also sort of how would this be? Because life in Philadelphia was fine, but my parents, were in their late 70s. And there was this thought of something should change. Who knows? Should they come to us? Should we go to them? So we spent the summer and decided that, we were going to move to Portland. And so that was the moment where I didn't do a lot of canning from July 2003 onward because I knew we were going to move. I didn't know it was going to take over 2 years to affect it. So I hadn't been doing a lot of canning because I was trying to burn through the reserves. And I ended up dumping a lot of stuff towards the end there, where I was like, so this is not answering your question, but one of the things that happens, and you guys know this too, when you write a book, you test a lot of recipes. And writing a canning book, I often kept things to like see how they age so that I could answer those questions for people like, well, how long does this last? But there's a certain point that you cross the line from like holding on to something to see how long it lasts to canning hoarding. And I really crossed that line. So I was working hard to use things up and then letting things go. But since getting back here, I feel those like bubbles, that urge to be canning. And it's hard right now because I'm in this temporary apartment with like a corner of a kitchen, basically. So it's not really a place where I can do much. And I can go across the backyard and use my mom's kitchen, but like my parents are in a little townhouse. So her kitchen is only marginally better than mine. And I will be the first to say you can can anywhere you are. And we do can in her kitchen. But I'm just not in a place where I can like explore canning right now and food preservation. So I'm really looking forward to eventually soon buying a house and having a real kitchen and some space. And we finally are under contract on our apartment in Philadelphia, which has taken a very long time.
Congratulations.
So that happened about 2 weeks ago. So fingers crossed, knock on all the things, that sale goes through in January, and then we can actually buy a house and have a real kitchen and get my jars back.
Set it up the way you need it set up.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, I feel like I've been in this like prolonged canning evolution. And I mean, I still have book ideas, and I'm like, I really want to come back around and do like a Food in Jars family book where I go back to like to talk about like how having kids changed my canning practice and how wildly ambitious I was for other parents when I was writing these books, and kind of make a book that people could actually do with kids and for kids and with kids. So that's something I'd like to do at some point.
Oh, that'd be so fun.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Seem to remember at one point, maybe I'm making this up, but you posted something on your blog about where to put all your jars, like canning jars, and you were putting some of them under your bed.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, so in Philadelphia, we lived in an apartment, did not have storage other than like what you see is what you had. So I had jars under the couch. I had jars under the bed. I had just like a tower of stacks of jars in the corner of my bedroom. I had a whole like closet devoted to jars. Like anywhere you could think of putting jars, I did. It was shocking as we cleared out that apartment how many jars there were. I sold and gave away probably 1,000 jars.
Oh my gosh.
And I still packed a lot of jars.
Whoa.
Yeah. I mean, it was, well, if you spend 15 years canning and people are giving you jars, and like I would do brand partnerships with jar makers, like it was a lot of jars. It was a lot of jars.
Do you remember when people were putting everything in? I feel like there was a period when mason jars were just a cool thing to put stuff in.
Yeah,
They were
totally.
like all over wedding
Yes.
boards and stuff. Yeah. for
We
sure.
we definitely had mason jars at our wedding. Well, we gave as wedding favors like little jam jars.
That's what
of
we did,
just
too.
homemade jam.
Yeah. I had a jam table at my wedding.
Yep.
And I got married in 2009. So it was just like right before Instagram and right before Pinterest. And so like, it was really just like, there was no organization to the jars. They weren't decorated. It was literally everything I had canned that summer. I got married in September. So I just like had a table like of Sharpie scrawled labels, everything I had canned that summer. That was just, and you could take something.
Amazing.
But my wedding was like in my cousin's backyard, and it was a potluck. So it was,
Yeah.
it was not super fancy.
I still think that that's such a great wedding.
Yeah, that's a great kind of wedding.
Yeah.
And now I think all of us, except for Dirk, I don't know when your anniversary is, but all of us we're married in September.
Yeah.
It is?
Yeah. September here.
Good time of year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love is in the air.
What do you think is the best first project for someone learning to can?
It depends on the time of year, but I feel like blueberry jam is one of the easiest. One, because there's no real chopping or prep. You're just going to smash those blueberries. Two, blueberries have some natural pectin, so you're more likely to get a set. And it's a satisfying finished product. You don't have a ton of product loss. There's some fruits where you start with 5 pounds and you still somehow end up with 3 jars. Like, you get a good volume from blueberries. They set up pretty well. They're easy to prep and they taste good. So like, if you like blueberries are a great project. If you're not a jam person, and you want to start with a pickle, dilly beans, not cucumbers, because cucumbers are really hard to maintain crunch. And if crunch is your like pickle metric, you're going to be disappointed. Whereas a green bean, it is sturdy. You can boil those suckers for a while and they are still going to be crunchy. And so like, blueberry jam and dilly beans are always the starter projects I suggest for people.
I agree with those choices. I think those sound really good.
Yeah.
I also love not having to prep fruit.
Yeah.
Like, not just being wash it, throw it in the pot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Potato masher, good to go.
All right. So each week we answer a caller question. And this week we're talking about, coincidentally, online canning resources. Dirk, can you read the question?
Do you know of any online resources or apps for canning safety? I want to send them to a coworker who recently started canning. I want to make sure she's being safe since she's gifting it to everyone in the office.
This is a great question.
I feel like we've been there.
What, just getting a gift of a canned thing and you don't know whether to trust it or not?
Right, or being in a situation where canned goods are circulating and some of them seem a little sus.
Yeah.
That's happened.
Well, as we've been discussing, foodinjars.com is a great online resource and very user-friendly, nice to look at, nice to read.
I think one of the nice things too is a lot of them are smaller batch. You're not making like pallets of jars of things. It's like, I want to make 10 jars or whatever it might be. It's much more manageable.
Yes.
Than a lot of things out there.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm glad to know that you guys appreciate my site. And the only other thing that I would really suggest is that if they haven't done any sort of canning education, to go to the National Center for Home Food Preservation and check out their resources. They even have like a little free online class that you can take if you've never done any canning before, where you can just kind of read their things, and then there's like a little quiz that you take, and you can make sure that you know enough to move forward in a way that's safe and fun. So Ball has some good recipes, but they don't have as much information on their website as they used to. Unfortunately, Ball got purchased. So the parent company of Ball used to be Jardin Home Brands, and then they were purchased by Newell, which owns Rubbermaid and Sharpie and a bunch of other companies. And their perspective on the canning service that Ball provides is different than it used to be. And so they see themselves more as a container company than a canning company at this point. So there are some good recipes there, but their resources aren't what they used to be. So it's unfortunate.
That kind of explains some of the Ball products that I've seen where they're obviously not meant to be used for food preservation.
Yeah, their ethos has really changed, which is a bummer.
Yeah.
But yeah, their website is almost exclusively like, pectin added stuff as well. So that's something to keep in mind, I guess. But yeah, nchfp.uga.edu.
Well, we're going to put all this in our show notes, so nobody has to remember.
It really is a great resource. And anytime someone, reaches out to me and is like, well, is my recipe safe? What I really do is I go to the National Center for Home Food Preservation and look and see, is there a recipe that sort of lines up with what they're asking me about? And then I send them that link, because there is no more authoritative source than that.
Mm-hmm.
And their website has been updated a bit. It looks kind of new and fresh.
Yeah. And if you really are interested, there's no app, but you can buy the National Center for Home Food Preservation book. And they revised it not that long ago. So it's pretty up to date. And there's lots more in the book than there's on the website. And it's not expensive. It used to be $18.50, and like literally you sent in a printed out form and a check. I think in the last 5 years they've updated that. I think you might be able to order it online now, but it is cheap and it's a really good sort of canning resource. It's not going to have like anything interesting. Like, you're not going to get any like creative flavor combinations, but what you're going to get is the, straight ahead information and science.
Mm-hmm. I was also thinking of, there's a lot of local extension service websites, depending on where anywhere would be good. But if you just look up your local extension service, they usually have canning resources. And if you want to learn even more, you can usually find information about master food preserver classes if you want to get real nerdy about it, which I was looking into just this morning thinking that would be cool. And then it was like, it's going to be a 35-minute drive for, a couple months of every Saturday. And I was like, oh, that's just too much. I can't do it right now, but maybe someday.
I've actually thought about because there is the Master Food Preserver course here, I was like, maybe I should finally do it. And I'd be like, is that ridiculous? I don't know. It'd be nice to have the qualification, not have people question,
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was thinking also, like, those are all really good online resources. Where you should not be looking is sketchy Facebook groups.
Yeah.
I mean, Facebook groups can be fun for sharing when you know what you're doing, but it's not, in my opinion, a good place to learn because you don't know any of those people and you don't know where the information's coming from. Don't use AI. Please don't.
Please don't.
No.
Yeah, like I was saying before, yeah, of course, like the chatbots are definitely not a good thing to use, but also it's hard these days to actually sniff out what is AI and what is not. So, there's entire recipe sites that I don't know if we've talked about them on the podcast, but we have encountered whole websites that have been AI generated, including the images and the recipes. It's really hard to say, to be able to tell the difference sometimes, but do your best to try to.
I mean, if you stick to the Center for Home Food Preservation, Extension Services, Ball, Food in Jars, like those are really good resources and they kind of have everything you need. You don't need to go fishing.
The one thing I would say is if people need to learn visually and they're looking for video, there is a lot of really good video out there, but there's also some really suspect video. And here's my litmus test. If they talk about canning butter, that is a website or a YouTube channel that you want to stay away from because there is no way to safely can dairy products. And
is that something a lot of people are trying to do?
On the survivalist prepper side of food preservation, there's a lot of that.
Okay.
Like they will buy butter when it's on sale and melt it and process those jars, and they're saying they're preserving butter, but it's but they're not trying to get into ghee. They're not browning it and separating out the the solids from the oil. They are just melting butter and canning it, and I don't trust anyone who recommends that. That's my cutoff.
That's a good advice.
Yeah, I mean there are some exceptions to the dairy rule, but it's ones that are lab tested.
Yes, and it's tiny bits of dairy. It's not just canning
all
a
dairy.
jar of butter.
Yeah, like lemon curd, those types of things where
And honestly, with lemon curd, they have sort of edged over to saying it's not ideal and you should only can it in 4-ounce jars and it really only lasts 3 months. They keep hedging the lemon curd. So I have curd recipes in my first and second book, and I sort of edged away from them in later books as I watched sort of the science edging away from those curds.
Well, I've seen a lot of people say something like, well, my grandma did X, Y, or Z and she was fine, so I'm going to do this thing. That is called survivor's bias. Your grandmother luckily survived her experimentations, but the people who did not survive aren't here to talk about it. So don't just take a thing that used to be done and just because someone was fine, that doesn't mean it's okay to do. Canning advice has changed over the years. We were kind of chatting this morning about how at what point do you trust a vintage cookbook or not? What's the year cutoff for that, do you think?
I want to say that late 80s and onward, those are fairly trustworthy. Whereas, I don't know. I feel that there was a big reckoning sometime in the 80s where a lot of the extension service recipes that, had been circulated, there was a big culling that happened. In fact, I think one of previous contributors to the Joy of Cooking canning chapters, Elizabeth Andrus.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, she's the National Center for Home Food Preservation person.
Yeah, I feel she was at the forefront of that movement to try to, improve the USDA Extension Service and the Extension Service selection of recipes to make sure that they were scientifically sound.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually I don't remember where this number came or this date came from, but I read somewhere that 1989 was sort of the cutoff, and that was when a lot of recipes started to move away from open kettle canning and wax sealing. And you will notice, you'll find jars meant for wax sealed jelly in the thrift store, and they just stop at a certain point. And some had plastic lids rather than those metal lids. But the late 80s, they stopped manufacturing all of those because that's when they started moving away from all of those things.
I was talking to my grandfather over the last time we were there several weeks ago in North Carolina, and he was sharing stuff about his childhood. So this would have been in the 40s probably. And he was talking about how when they were very rural, and when they would slaughter their pigs every year, they would make fresh sausage and they would cook the 4-minute patties, cook it, put the patties in jars, and then pour just the grease around the sausage, and that's how they preserved meat. And I was kind of like, really?
Oh my
That's but I mean, it worked, I guess, but I don't recommend it.
It just makes you value your life. And
It
the fact
does.
that,
I love my
Yeah.
deep freezer.
Yes, freezing is good. That's a nice
Yeah.
technology to have. You sort of were thinking about, like, how do you tell if a canned good may not be trustworthy?
Yeah, there are two different sides to this question, I guess. What resources do you make your coworker who is so enthusiastic about canning aware of so that they don't make your coworker sick and you sick? And then there's also like what's some advice for recipients of questionable canned goods and like what to look for. And I don't know, I had a list of things going that have made me personally feel a little sketched out. But yeah, too much headspace or not enough is kind of a good way to gauge like how much attention is being paid to the project.
And for a non-canner, headspace is just literally the airspace inside the jar, so where there is not product.
I feel like that we actually tend to not put enough headspace. Like I think we're at like about that half an inch side, but yeah, anything more than an inch, 3/4 of an inch, yeah, that's a big warning sign.
In my experience, like there are recipes that will call for more headspace, but it's about density of product. The more dense the product is, the more headspace you need in order for it to seal properly. But yeah, I've run from products that, like, if you can see the top of the product and it has a ring on it, that's probably not something you want to eat.
Yeah.
No date on the lid / label. I feel like that if somebody's not dating it, then, well, you just have no idea how old it is.
Or how long you can keep it,
Right.
regardless of whether it's safe or not.
Then what? Leaky, rusty, or crusty rims. I mean, that's a pretty obvious one.
I mean, that can happen when you're canning. Like, you can get some of the stuff can come out and it gets crusty, but you need to clean it off.
Yeah.
Like, it's, yeah.
I mean, I never gift something that is sticky. You know, you just want to rinse those jars. Rinse those jars.
Oh, hello. I just wanted to take a moment to tell you about an easy way to enhance your meals. Whether they are a healthy vegan grain bowl or that late night snack we'll pretend didn't happen the next day, and that easy way is Marshall's Hot Sauce. For 15 years, chef and cookbook author Sarah Marshall has been hand-making and bottling these delicious sauces. She works directly with local farmers and highlights the lovely flavors of fresh seasonal produce. They're gluten-free, there are no additives, dyes, waxes, or binders, and they have mouth-watering combinations like serrano ginger lemongrass, or habanero carrot curry, or even whiskey smoked ghost, which was featured on Hot Ones. So head on over to marshallshotsauce.com, that's Marshall's HAUTESAUCE.com, and see all the available sauces and spice blends. Oh, that's right. Sarah's created spice packets by dehydrating and freeze-drying actual produce, so you can impart flavor to your food with more vegetables. But that's a story for another day. Find all of these delicious creations at marshallshotsauce.com and enter HOTJOY, that's one word, capital H, AUTE, capital JOY, one word, at checkout for 20% off. That's HOTJOY at checkout for 20% off. And now, back to the show.
Do you have any other things to look out for?
Discoloration. Like some things will always lose a little bit of color on the top, like strawberry jam will always discolor. But if it's radically changed color or like the top looks crusty, like the actual product of the thing has dried out to the point where like, I don't think it's supposed to be that way. The other thing is if a supposedly sealed jar opens too easily, that's a real warning sign
Like
for me.
if there's no hiss.
Yeah, if it's just kind of like it was stuck, but it wasn't sealed, like that. Like there's a line there where you're like, oh, I don't want to eat that.
Nice hiss.
Nice hiss. There's a YouTube channel that,
Yeah,
anyway, it's a
sorry.
long story, but nice hiss.
What is his handle?
It's like Steve 1989 MRE info on YouTube. Steve, if you're listening to this
Wow.
podcast, I'm a big fan and would love to have you on the show. That's a guy who eats MREs and talks about them, and I just find it weirdly fascinating. But that's another
We all have our
can of
things like
worms.
that.
Yeah. And so since we're talking about preserves, we wanted this week's Joy Scouts recipe to be sort of related. So we're going with the Rombauer Jam Cake on page 732. It's a really, really good cake. And it has like, I think it's either 2/3 or 3/4 cup of raspberry jam in it. So it's incorporated in the batter.
Or blackberry.
Or blackberry.
But, I think that you could probably go off script on this.
Yeah, totally.
Whatever you got.
But it has a really fun icing it has two options. There's a brown butter icing that you can make, which is really good, or something called panouche icing, which is like a brown sugar. I think it's called, what's the other name for it? Butterscotch.
Yeah,
Quick
quick
butterscotch,
butterscotch
icing.
I feel like we just need to change it to brown sugar icing.
Yeah.
I feel like that definitely sells itself right
Yeah.
there.
I've made it in a tube pan, so it's either bundt or tube pan, and then you drizzle the icing over and it kind of hardens. And it's just a really solid cake, and it's been in the book since 36.
Yeah, 1936. Irma's head note. She has a good one for this one. It is a treat sometimes, a stroll from paths with which one is contemptuously familiar. Try this one.
I love it.
Yeah, you gotta wonder.
Wow.
I wonder what the context was for this.
Yeah.
I just feel like she was smiling when she was writing that. She's like, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of head notes like that.
You do get a little insane when you're writing head notes.
Yeah.
So,
I think there was one head note where Irma was like, people seem to like this for some reason. I don't really get it, but who am I to judge, kind of?
I like those sassy ones.
So if you make the Rombauer Jam Cake, it's a great holiday cake too because it's got spices in it and it's kind of like, it's not dark, but it's definitely got a little bit of that spice to it. If you make that recipe, please tag us on Instagram at The Joy of Cooking and let us know what you think. If you have a cooking question or joy story to share, call our hotline at 503-395-8858. Leave us a message or send us a text. We would love to hear from you. Dirk, can you please read or play our next caller question?
Hi, my name's Blair, and I have loved listening to the Joy of Cooking podcast all the way back to episode 1 when I was the second subscriber.
Oh my God.
Not exactly a podcast question, but I figured this might be the best place to ask the experts. Wink emoji. My sister and I are heading to Portland, Oregon, and Eugene. We are so excited, but have never been to Oregon before. Any must-see restaurants or sites that you can recommend? We will have 2 nights in Portland and 4 nights in Eugene. Thank you so much. Happy cooking, smiley face, and a frying pan with a fried egg.
Nice.
Thank you for describing the emojis.
Thanks so much for that question, Blair. I have just the Google map for you. We'll figure out some way to get that to you, perhaps, but we'll also answer your question more specifically in the next episode. All right, everybody, what are we cooking this week?
It's Thanksgiving here right now.
What are you making for Thanksgiving?
Well, I am making what John Becker told me to make because I was feeling like I just was not feeling it.
Yeah.
And we're doing non-traditional Thanksgiving. My sister is cooking some lamb and making a salad with squash and dates and beets and all of this kind of stuff. So I am just doing what John told me to do. We're also making fresh bread, and we're doing a feta labna dip. That's the one where we chose to do with like a garlicky, crunchy thing on top, and roasted broccoli rabe. Yeah.
Nice.
Thank you. I really should start paying you for all of the text. I'm like, what should I cook right now?
I mean, for a nominal fee. Not even
We will tell you what to cook.
Yeah.
It's really, really helpful. So thank you.
Yeah, we're making, well, we talked about it a few times, but we're making seafood gumbo for Thanksgiving. And I guess everyone's looking forward to it because we've been told that everyone's really excited. So that's good.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that because I think last year I did like a sidecar turkey. Like it was like it was like supplemental turkey. And so I'm glad that my decision to preemptively not do that is being met with, applause.
Sidecar turkey.
Extra turkey. I'm going to make a chocolate chess pie. It's my favorite chess pie to make. And I'm going to do it like a coffee whipped cream, I think. And I'm going to experiment. So when we were in Vietnam last year, we kind of fell in love with these little instant coffee packets, like a 3-in-1. So it's got sugar in it. It's got the instant coffee and then like some kind of non-dairy thing going on. But they're really good. And
G7, baby.
G7.
So good.
The logo has like 2 people dressed in business attire next to a helicopter. It's a really good package. I don't know. But I'm going to try adding one of those to my whipped cream and just see what happens. I think it will be delicious, but you never know. So I'm going to do a test batch.
Sounds good.
That sounds really good.
What about you? What are you making?
My family is very attached to sort of a traditional Thanksgiving, and because it's the first year we're doing it with my parents, like it's all of a negotiation. We're going to see how it all turns out, but it's a fairly traditional turkey, gravy, stuffing, mashed potatoes. I do a gingery squash that my cousin Jeremy used to bring to our Thanksgiving, and he died about a year and a half ago. I don't know if Andy Ricker is my cousin, and this is Andy Ricker's brother.
Oh, God, I forgot that connection.
So it's an ode to Jeremy Ricker, my cousin. So I'm making his squash, and we really miss him. So it's a bummer. And then the other thing I make is I make a potato roll because I have 6-year-olds, and all they really eat is the turkey and bread. So I at least try to make like the bread part a high quality, delicious bread. So that,
I love a potato roll.
Yeah, they're really good. It's a recipe from the kitchen that I've been making for years and kind of have tweaked over the years, but you use instant potato flakes. It makes it really easy, and it's a little bit sweet. It's like the perfect kid bread. It always like satisfies that kind of Thanksgiving roll.
Delicious.
I love instant potatoes.
I was about to say instant potato flakes are, I think, maybe a little underappreciated.
They're very underappreciated, I think.
They're useful, and they last forever. I had a box before we moved that I'd literally been working from for like 5 years, and they just kind of always were the same. It was great. So, although I did put it in a jar because it's me.
This reminds me, we haven't made the quick gnocchi with that.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Flakes.
But it's really solid. Good. It's great for gnocchi.
Yeah. That should be a Joy Scout recipe.
Yeah, we'll do that sometime. I promise.
Someday.
And Marisa, before we wrap, where can listeners follow you?
I am Food in Jars wherever you might look. So foodinjars.com on Instagram, Facebook. I don't really make TikToks, but I'm still there as Food in Jars. So I hope to someday get back into creating more stuff for the world. And I have a Substack called The Food in Jars Family. So it's a little bit less canning, a little bit more just kind of what's going on.
Perfect. We'll add all those to the show notes so everyone can find you. Thanks for listening to the Joy of Cooking podcast. Before we go, show some love for your favorite podcast by subscribing to the show and leaving us a review. Follow us at joyofcooking.substack.com and on Instagram at thejoyofcooking. Stay tuned for next week where we'll talk about Portland restaurants, and don't forget to make this week's recipe, Rombauer Jam Cake, on page 732. Call in with questions, hopes, history, or where you find joy in the kitchen. Our number is 503-395-8858. That's 503-395-8858.
And we could not do this without our fantastic team at the Joy of Creation production house. Thank you to Dave Drusky, our production coordinator, Haley Bowers, our audio engineer, and Dirk Marshall, our producer.
If you love the stories we bring you each week, please consider supporting us on Patreon. As an independent media company, your support is absolutely essential. It allows us to continue creating high-quality professional episodes that amplify the voices of women, small business owners, writers, artists, and creatives, and keep their stories free from commercial pressure. By becoming a Patreon member, you're not just supporting us, you're investing in the future of independent media. Please visit patreon.com/The Joy of Creation Production House to join our community today. Thank you for listening and supporting our podcast dreams.